What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back to my unit review series for Fire Emblem Heroes. Today I'm going to be taking a look at Garon King of Nohr, and these are the topics I'm going to be discussing in this review. So let us begin.
I relish this chance.
Garon is a red infantry dragon with pretty good min-max stats. He has fantastic mixed bulk and he has pretty decent attack at base 33, and he has got the highest resistance out of any red dragons, or tikis I guess, so he can run ploys really nicely. And he comes with Breath of Blight as his legendary weapon. It does make him immune to dragon effective weapons like Falchion, Breath of Fog and Naga weapons, and that is a huge boon because there are a lot of Falchion users in the game, and on a full Dragon Emblem team he can work as a Falchion check by running Swordbreaker. But the problem is that legendary Marth can still be a big threat because his binding shield cancels out his Swordbreaker, so that's the thing. And its other effect is that on start of turn 4, he deals 10 damage to foes within 3 spaces and recovers HP to himself, depending on amount of enemies within 3 spaces, multiplied by 5. So for example, if he has got 3 foes within 3 spaces of him, then he's going to be recovering 15 HP. And this effect is really nice for Grand Hero battles and Grand Conquest. Especially for Grand Conquest, this damage is going to be amazing for your sweepers to pretty much come in and get the kill. And for Grand Hero battles, doing damage from far away and also recovering HP is really nice. But for Arena, 4 turns is really long and it's not really useless. You could certainly use this if you decide to prolong the match and stall out, which you could definitely do. But negating Falchion damage is more relevant in Arena than this damage, but still it can be useful. And it does do adaptive damage like other Dragon Breaths. Even though he cannot retaliate back at range, he can still use this in the player phase by initiating against a ranged unit. And Breath of Blight is definitely a pretty unique and fun weapon, but to overall use his fantastic mixed bulk and his default distant defense, Lightning Breath is the go-to weapon if you're willing to invest into him. Distant defense is a slot A skill, but he cannot really retaliate back against ranged units, so this is only useful for reducing damage, and you can definitely use this if you decide to run Lightning Breath on him. And he does have Panic Ploy as a slot C skill, but the problem is that he doesn't really have enough HP to use Panic Ploy reliably. His HP is good, but it's not really all that high. He can surely Panic Ploy some of the low HP mages, but that's about it. And you do get 3 copies of him as of right now, and he does have Panic Ploy at 4-star rarity, so you could definitely run that on your armor units, on your high HP dragons and stuff like that. And distant defense is available at 5 stars, so you will have to upgrade him. And here are some good recipients of distant defense Sacred Seal if you decide to use him as a fodder for that. Leo with his Brynhilde Refined really likes the defense against range units to deny follow-ups, so distant defense in slot A is definitely useful. And you can definitely stack that up with distant defense Sacred Seal. Now distant defense is definitely much better as a Sacred Seal because you'll be able to stack it up with something like Fury or anything in slot A that increases your attack, but still, for some units, distant defense in slot A can work. And another example of that is Fallen Robin, and Robin has got a lot of attack, so he can definitely afford to run distant defense as a slot A skill. And he does have any distant counter weapon, and on these kinds of units, distant counter as a slot A skill is definitely nice. And Julius has got amazing resistance, and he does give -6 attack to mages who are not Daedra and Julia because of the lob tier. So with distant defense and slot A, he can be a fantastic magic check, and you can certainly run distant defense as a slot A skill with a guard bow set, because guard bow does have distant defense inbuilt, and on a unit like Valentine Roy or Faye, this can be really nice. And then we have got Xander. Now Xander is definitely quite outdated unit, but if you still decide to use him, distant defense on his slot A is really nice for increasing his resistance by stacking it up with the Sacred Seal, and he can have respectable amount of resistance with these 2 distant defense. And finally, we have got Adult Tiki, the better Garon I guess if you decide to merge her and use her for long-term investment. And if you do not have something like Warding Breath or Steady Breath to give to her, you can definitely give her distant defense because she does need resistance. She already has a lot of defense, and compared to Adult Tiki as a unit, Garon does have better mixed bulk but less attack and less defense, and obviously lack of merges and IVs, so for a long-term investment, Adult Tiki is better because she can appear at 3-star and 4-star rarity. Overall, he's a solid unit with good stat spread, and he comes with a premium skill like distant defense. And Breath of Blight is a fun and unique weapon, which makes him the only unit immune to dragon effective attacks.
You can't possibly win.
This is a low investment build for Garon, and you can definitely run close defense as a secret seal, as he already has distant defense for his slot A, and just run quick repose. There's really not much to be said, but you could definitely run attack smoke or attack ploy as a slot C skill. And then for his second build, you can run steady stance on his slot A over distant defense, and this is assuming that Silas from Nohrian Dusk Banner gets demoted, and it will be easier to access steady stance. Now like I said, distant defense 3 is nice for reducing damage, but he cannot really retaliate back against those range units, so it's better to capitalize on his melee range matchups with steady stance, and he can stack it up with close defense to give him 45 defense in the enemy phase. And his third build is a Falchion counter build, so you can run Fury and Swordbreaker. Fury gives him bulk and power for both phases, and you mainly need Fury for initiating combat in player phase, and Fury's attack boost is certainly nice in the player phase, and you want to run Glimmer for getting more one-round KOs against these kinds of sword units, especially in the player phase, because if you run Bonfire, you're not going to be able to proc that in the player phase. But like I said, the problem with this build is that Legendary Marth still cannot be checked by this build because you do not have enough speed to bypass Binding Shield with a speed check, and Legendary Marth is the biggest threat to any kind of Dragon Emblem team, and Garon being immune to his effective damage is as far as Garon can do against him. His fourth build is a Lightning Breath build, and like I said, to use his fantastic mixed bulk and his distant defense slot A skill, Lightning Breath is the go-to weapon, and he can have really good defense and resistance thanks to distant and close defense skills. And his fifth build is a Ploy build. Now this is still on the budget side because you could get attack ploy from a 4-star Julius, and once again I'm assuming Silas gets demoted so we can have steady stance pretty easily. And with this build you want to refine his Lightning Breath to increase his resistance for more ploying, and you can even run his default distant defense 3 if Silas does not get demoted and if you're not able to get your hands on steady stance 3. And with dual ploys you can certainly provide some team support. And the sixth build is a breath build with ether, of course. It's a pretty standard build and there's not really much can go wrong with this build. You can run steady breath instead of warding breath, and with this he can trigger ether in a single round. And his seventh build and the final build is the most expensive build for all of the Garon enthusiasts, and this is a max scoring build for Arena, and it does use expensive skills like Distant Counter and Rally Up Attack Plus for scoring.
Vanish into the darkness!
For Garon's Blessing, I would say that Fire Blessing is the best one to confer to him, in my opinion. And with Legendary Ephraim, he can provide him with the attack ploy support from a distance for his Heavy Blade Gale Force build, and take care of green units like Grima, and also mages for Ephraim because he does have really low resistance. And plus 4 defense from his legendary effect is really good for Garon's bonfire damage and for his overall bulk. And if you run him with Legendary Hector, then Legendary Hector can just check blue units for Garon really well, and the +2 attack bonus can be quite helpful if you're running Lightning Breath because it does have lower might. Garon can check red mages decently well and also check sword units with the Swordbreaker build. And with Ostia's Pulse, you could definitely run Bonfire with the Swordbreaker build, or run Ignis and nuke something on his first fight. And finally with Legendary Marth, he can get +4 resistance, and that can be useful for ploys and for having a better matchup against mages, but they do have the same color and they share the same color weakness, so that's a problem. And for his blessing, an honorable mention will go to the Wind Blessing. Now, Legendary Lyn can be useful for dealing with some of the blue mages and also for taking on some blue units, but she's not really all that potent for taking on blue units as much as Legendary Hector, of course. And Legendary Lucina speed buff is not really useful to Garon, and Gunthra can certainly support Garon with Res Ploy and Chilling Seal. The -6 attack debuff with Chilling Seal is definitely useful to Garon, but still overall we have got better fire legendary heroes and they do work much better with Garon, so that's why Fire Blessing is the best one in my opinion.
You are no match for me!
For his teammates, you could certainly run more dragon allies with him and units who give the dragon buffs like War Armor male Grima and Fortified Dragons male Kana and Ninian. And you can also pair him up with Fallen Takumi for getting passive damage on turn 3 and turn 4. And blue checks for covering his color weakness is nice. And if you run Titania and you run her Refine, then Res Tactic and Defense Tactic buff can be really nice for Garon. And if you use Breath of Blight, then sweepers like Brave Celica and Legendary Ephraim can be nice for utilizing the 10 passive damage for getting more kills. And for his counters, common blue units and powerful blue mages are of course an obvious one, and Wrath users like Carla and Ira can still destroy him even though he has got a neutral matchup against them.
Oh, yes.
Now let's take a look at some of the reasons why you may or may not want to upgrade him. So Garon does have pretty good min-max stats and a pretty good mixed bulk. And he also has a fun and unique weapon which can be useful for Grand Tier battles and Grand Conquest, as I said before. And he's relatively cheap to build, and budget sets also do pretty nicely with him. And Lightning Breath Plus is also not really an expensive investment, because Noe can appear at 3-star and 4-star rarity. But for long-term investment, Adult Tiki is better unit because she can appear at 3-star and 4-star and has got IVs and merges. And if you have already invested into multiple red dragons or tikis, or even a plus and merge tiki, then you really do not have much incentive to 5-star him unless you just want to have fun with his legendary breath. And if you haven't really upgraded Asuka Trio, then their promotion takes the priority if you're a free-to-play unit. And spending feathers on Asuka Trio is definitely much better in that regard. And that is going to be it for my review. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, then please be sure to leave a like and share this video with your friends who are excited to have Garon in this game. And if you haven't already, then make sure to subscribe for more Fire Emblem Heroes content. And with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.